You ever feel like you just miss out on something, Kyril?
All the time.
Like, during our vacations and whatnot, I feel like there's been a lot of screaming, a lot of shit going down. I don't know what's up with people. I'm sure we didn't miss anything.
No, nothing. Nothing at all.
Yeah. I feel like a winner, though, all of a sudden.
I know.
Like, 4 years of bullshit just kind of culminated with a win finally.
I'll be honest. As far as weeks to take a vacation could go, this one was pretty good because it was just like not not having to worry about work and not having to be like angry all the time at how fucked up our country is. It was a nice 2-for-1.
I bet it was. I bet it was, man. So, where the fuck did we start this week? Did we start with like the smaller fry, the bigger fry? There's like so many fries to like burn that
Yes.
we.
I want to start with the Florida one.
The
'Cause
Florida
I
one.
feel like, yeah, the Mar-a-Lago.
I cannot wait for this scene in the eventual Trump biopic we will get.
Yeah. It has been remarkable seeing how fast they have tried to spin this and how fast in response it has absolutely failed.
What are you talking about? He's an innocent man. What?
Yeah.
We all know it. Okay, let's just say it, everybody. Maybe we should not defund the police, but defund the FBI. Clearly, they are a corrupt political institution doing the will of a corrupted party rather than actually doing their job of protecting us. You know, that's never happened before on local levels like the police. So, yeah, for anybody that's not in the know, the FBI did a raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Not a raid. I think there's an important distinction.
Yeah.
The FBI, there was no raid. I've seen it characterized by that a lot, and it's a gross mischaracterization. They executed a warrant. They were in conversation with Trump's attorneys and representatives at Mar-a-Lago for days ahead of time. They were in back and forth discussions over the specific documents that they believed were, and they had evidence that were in possession at Mar-a-Lago. They asked for them to be returned. They weren't returned. They went to Mar-a-Lago multiple times, and on I don't remember which day it was, like the 8th-ish, sometime around then. They presented the warrant. They searched for the place. They took the documents that they believed were wrongly there, and they left. The house wasn't turned. There wasn't a no-knock raid. It wasn't at all unexpected. But they'd sure like you to think that.
Hyrule, it sounds funnier when you say it was a raid.
Yeah. It's remarkable, though. This is, to me, it feels a lot like how, they took Al Capone down for tax fraud. We've been sitting here watching all this bullshit that Trump's been doing for how long? And
Yes.
what they're going to get him on is mishandling of classified documents.
That he signed up for.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the important thing. Before Trump's presidency, this would have still been a crime. But I believe it was only a misdemeanor at the time.
Yes.
And with his administration, they escalated it to a felony.
Which is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's great.
Could you imagine how he must be feeling about that right now? Like to shoot himself in the foot like that?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure he's still blaming Obama.
Oh, yeah. No, he's like, I wouldn't have to set up that if it weren't for Obama. Oh, my God. Have you seen his statement on the raid? Well, the quote-unquote raid?
Which one? I've definitely seen some of them. I haven't looked at them recently. I for sure saw them and laughed, though.
They're so, like, unaware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend for, like, the information about this, Legal. We've mentioned him before. We talked about him before. Has the much more concise details about this
It's
that were
almost
coming
like
out bit more up to the minute.
he's actually a professional in the law field or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so FBI executed a warrant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The current, I don't believe this has been confirmed yet, but the current working assumption is that this was done in order to retrieve highly classified federal documents specifically related to nuclear devices.
Which, if that doesn't shit your pants,
Yeah.
that's quite the statement on yourself and not the situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's been two that is the definitely the most concerning one that I've heard. The other one was related to CIA activity abroad, which would also be not good. They literally made a movie, Salt, about someone getting burned by being accused of having done that,
Yes.
based on like true events. So like it's a very serious thing if that happened. But the nuclear stuff is, it's a peg up.
All I'm saying is, Kyril, I cannot wait for this fucking movie to come out. I want, I'm not a big fan of the guy politically. I'm going to say that. He's a great entertainer. And when
Mhm.
this is like all behind us and we are like living with flying cars and whatnot, this is going to
Yeah.
make one hell of a great Vice style biopic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did actually see a really good interview. I don't remember if it was with John Oliver or John Stewart, but one of the political satirists talking about Trump. Because when the election happened, the running joke was that, oh, it'll be just, endless material, right?
Yeah.
And they're talking about it and how it's actually not, because it's all so dumb that you can't make jokes about it. It's
It's,
just too stupid.
you see, the thing with Bush is like, at least you could take him somewhat seriously.
To a point.
Yeah, the comedy in Bush was,
Yeah.
the idea of this guy, lowering him down a peg, and then
Hmm.
his actions become quite funny.
Yeah. Well, and they like at least tried to sort of hide their malice, right? During the
Yeah,
Bush administration.
yeah,
Now it's also upfront that there's still, of course, a place for political commentary and satire, but the role that it serves isn't so much for like trying to show the shittiness that's going on because it's so blatant.
yeah.
And you either see it and you support it or you don't.
No in
There's
between.
only, yeah. Like if you can see some of this stuff and think, oh yeah, that's fine. What more can you do?
So I do have Trump's statement about all this pulled up.
Yes,
Would you like me to recite this beautiful doctrine?
please do. Sorry, is this before or after the uh search warrant was publicly released?
This was before, I believe, because
Okay.
this is August
Yes.
8th.
Yes. Please do. This is good.
Statement by Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. These are dark times for our nation, as my beautiful home, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, is currently under siege, raided, and occupied by a group of FBI agents. Nothing like this has ever happened to a president in the United States before. After working and cooperating with the relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate. It is persecutional misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024. Especially based on recent polls, and who would likewise do anything to stop Republicans and conservatives in the upcoming midterm elections. Such an assault can only take place in a broken third world country. Sadly, America has now become one of those countries. Countries capitalized, by the way, which is really weird. Corrupt at a level not seen before. They even broken into my safe. What is the difference between this and Watergate, where operatives broke into the Democrat National Committee Here in reverse, Democrats broke into the home of the 45th President of the United States. The political persecution of President Donald J. Trump has been going on for years, with now the fully debunked Russia scam, impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, and so much more. It just never ends. It is political targeting at the highest level. Hillary Clinton has allowed to delete an acid wash 33,000 emails after they were subpoenaed by Congress. Absolutely nothing has happened to hold her accountable. She even took antique furniture and other items from the White House. I stood up to America's bureaucratic corruption. I restored power to the people and truly delivered for our country. Country capitalized again. Like we never seen before. The establishment hated it. Now as they watch my endorsed candidates win big victories and see my dominance in all polls, they are trying to stop me in the Republican Party once more. The lawlessness, political persecution, and witch hunt must be exposed and stopped. I will continue to fight for the great American people.
It's a remarkable statement.
It is.
He, with like, not even, I can't even call it hindsight, with more information known now, it is remarkable to see how much stuff he was lying about.
It is beautiful, really, because like this
Like,
paints a picture.
yeah. So just going like line by line.
Yeah.
Mar-a-Lago is currently under siege, raided, and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. None of that is true.
This was after the raid, the quote
This was
unquote raid.
after the raid. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no occupation. After working and cooperating with relevant government agencies, they didn't. We know that now.
Yeah.
Unannounced raid, wasn't unannounced. They gave him days of notice ahead of time. Was not necessary or appropriate. The existence of the warrant completely refutes that. You know, you can't get a warrant without evidence, right?
Yeah.
Weaponization of the justice system, attacked by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024. We'll get to a story later that highlights why that's actually probably not true. Another bit of sort of Schadenfreude story of the GOP tearing itself from the inside now, especially based on recent polls. Not whose polls, right?
Yeah. Never cites his polls. Never.
Which such an assault can only take place in broken third world countries. No.
I feel like that's kind of racist because like that's kind of painting us as like like any third world country as uncivilized, which is kind of fucked up.
This is great. What is the difference between this and Watergate, where operatives broke into the DNC? Never mind the fact that this is the FBI, not. Anyways, it's good. So then we get into this next part that's also great because fully debunked Russia scam. We have another story that's going to be coming up later about how that is also being quickly found to have been completely botched intentionally by his administration.
Oh no.
Impeachment hoax. He was impeached, but whatever. Hillary Clinton was allowed to delete and acid wash 33,000 emails. That's just not true. She turned over everything. They found something like a number that you could genuinely count that had classified information on them. All but I think 3 were missing the appropriate designation, classifying them on the documents themselves as being classified, and all of them were properly secured. None of them were actually allowed to leak. She even took antique furniture. I don't think anybody has like made this claim before, but I guess we could look into it later.
I'm doing it right now.
It's weird, right?
Google doesn't even pull anything up. Oh, what the fuck? Okay, here you want to hear this?
Yes, please.
Okay, first thing that comes up is a February 8th, 2001 article about Hillary returning some White House furniture from when Bill was president.
It's pretty good. So
That's
even if it is
cut.
true, she didn't take it. Bill did.
Oh my gosh, there's a fucking Snopes article about it from 2016.
Oh, I'm sure.
What a deep cut. This man's like pretty good. Not
It's a
gonna lie.
remarkable level of pettiness. So yeah, banger of a statement with some great details to come out after. Since then, the search warrant has been released. Notably, though, this was going through the court processes where the DOJ, with the support of current Attorney General Merrick Garland, said they wanted the search warrant to be released, given how Trump himself decided to make this a public matter. They wanted the details of it to be known, at least at a base level, so that it could be verified and fact checked. Judge agreed. Trump didn't contest it, so a redacted version of the warrant was released to the public,
Hmm.
specifically redacting like the names of the FBI agents involved. Except Trump decided to release an unredacted version of it to one of the stupid far right news sources like Newsmax or whatever that had all of the names very clearly unredacted on it. So basically, doxed all of these FBI agents while also claiming that the FBI needs to be dismantled. And would you know it? In the days following it, we've had one guy attack, I think, Cincinnati FBI offices
Yep.
with a rifle and a nail gun. He was killed. And another one who was charged with threats following posts he made on Gab, one of the Republican, Twitter knockoffs. And part of this was that the FBI subpoenaed Gab for these records of the conversations, and they of course gave it to them because of course they did. That's how this works.
You're telling me
Um,
that when the FBI went up to Gab asking for some documents, they gave it out right away, even though this whole incident started from the FBI asking someone for documents and not giving them right away.
that's right. Yeah, it's been pretty remarkable how dumb it is. As far as I know, no FBI agent or their families have been harmed, directly. There's obviously been, emotional harm probably from the stupidity of it. I wouldn't be surprised if some sort of a suit comes down from these agents against Trump for both putting out their names and uh, putting out the unredacted memo. Like it's pretty clearly malicious. But we'll see how that goes.
I mean, Uh, you're right. It is very super clearly malicious. You don't
Yeah,
just give out those names if you don't have like
right.
a personal vendetta against every single one of them.
It really sounds similar to another case that was decided this week that we'll get into in a bit.
Oh no, I know
But
the
yeah, the
one.
big thing that's come out of this, and as far as I know, this hasn't been confirmed yet, but we should be learning soon as the courts have decided that the affidavit, which has the details of what the FBI was looking for at Mar-a-Lago, a redacted version of it is to be released.
Hmm.
Uh, Court decision went through with that, so it is going to be released in a redacted form, and we'll probably get some more information about it at that time. Um, what that information says and how much it's actually able to contain, given that this is specifically related to sensitive national secrets in the first place, will be determined then. But more information will be coming out soon. The current understanding of it is that it is specifically pertaining to nuclear documents. What exactly that means is not known. But we know some of the crimes that are involved with it based on the search warrant, and they are specifically pertaining to the types of documents that even the president does not have the permission to declassify. So, very serious stuff relating to not just national security, but national security at a level beyond what would be typically expected.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That was a couple of the arguments against why this, unlawful raid was illegal and bad was that, oh, well, Trump can just declassify any documents he wants to with his mind brain. He doesn't even need to write it down. which is of course dumb and wrong. But also in this case, it appears that these are, even through formal processes, not documents that he could declassify solely by saying it so. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Um, Currently, we're kind of just waiting for more information on it. But yeah, if you want more details, legal, very good pair of videos on it.
See, we should get him on the podcast. Legal
That would be
Eagle,
fun. I would
hit
love to
us up.
just chat with him about like how he went from being like a practice, because I assume he still is practicing in some capacity,
Yeah.
but how he made that transition over to YouTube to fill this kind of specific niche and done it in such a wildly popular way.
Yeah, he's really found this he found
Mm-hmm.
this audience of people who like the law, and
Mm-hmm.
he's really turned himself into more of a public educational figure in terms of it.
Yeah.
Commentary aside, that's in his videos, you do
Mm-hmm.
learn something from him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about the second stupid person who oh man, have you seen so we're gonna talk about some Alex Jones stuff because it's chef's kiss, wonderful. Have you seen Legal Eagles videos on it? I assume you have.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful. Like
Okay,
especially
it's
with that big
so
leak that
good.
happened partway
Yes.
through it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to ruin the spoilers for anybody that doesn't follow this shit, but oh my god.
Hmm. So the key points here is that the first of Alex Jones's three civil cases regarding his lies about Sandy Hook has come to a verdict. This was one of the Texas cases. I believe there's a second Texas case as well as a court case in Connecticut.
I think it's Connecticut.
Um, yeah, there's at least two. There's at least one in Texas and one in Connecticut. And I know both of those, I got these actually confused at the time. Both of those resulted in the same summary judgment where they basically decided within the same week that Jones is being intentionally evasive and not complying with court orders. So we're going to find against him and say, just go straight to assessing damages. Both the stories came out so soon, I just assumed that it was the same one, but both courts did it at the same time, which makes sense because all this is going on at about the same time frame.
Yeah.
This Texas case is moving a bit quicker though because it's only related to one family versus a group of families. So it has concluded now with a verdict, finding that Jones is responsible for 4 point something $1 million in compensatory damages. So that is specific damages to the family themselves for the harm that they were caused by Jones's irresponsible speech and the fallout that resulted from his viewers following his speech. And an additional $49 million in punitive damages, basically trying to penalize Jones for that irresponsible action to try and make it so it doesn't happen again. We'll get into a little bit more details on that in a second, though, after we go through some of the fun details of it about why the punitive damages side isn't completely done yet. But the big, like, the term bombshell gets thrown around a lot lately. It's kind of plastered on everything, regardless of the scale of it. But this is one of the few cases where, like, I don't think anybody would argue that it wasn't justified after seeing the scale of the evidence that came out from this. So, uh, this was revealed during damages by the prosecution to Jones while he was on the stand, where they demonstrated, based on information that Jones's lawyer seemingly sent by accident, that not only had Jones been perjuring himself multiple times and lying to them, but that he had been doing so in an incredibly shameless way.
Yes.
And that the extent of his misconduct very likely extends well beyond just this specific court case. What ended up happening here is that an assistant to Jones's lawyer sent the prosecution a Google Drive link, basically, a OneDrive link, to a digital archive that contained the entire contents of Jones's phone for the last 3 years. The
So,
prosecution, recognizing that this was not what they asked for, responded, "Hey, we think you sent us the wrong thing. What of this should we consider?" To which they basically responded, in their words, they said to please disregard all of it, which is not how the Texas law works.
yeah.
Specifically in Texas, when information is sent to the opposing lawyer inadvertently, and some amount of it is believed to be privileged, which in this case that was their argument, you have to specifically outline what information that was sent is privileged and which isn't. You can't just say disregard everything. You have to pretty extensively in this case go through everything and say this is privileged, this is, and you have to say what is rather than just what isn't. So by them saying please disregard everything is not how the law works. And the prosecution, knowing this, very smartly decided to basically not press it any more than that, and just sort of let them fall over their own feet.
I mean, that's like the first rule of Art of War. If your
Right.
enemy's making a mistake, don't correct them.
Exactly. So in this case, they received access to all of Jones's text messages for 3 years because none of it was specifically identified as privileged by the defense. Included in that are apparently, to no one's surprise, Jones is the kind of guy that sends nudes to people. Who would have
No.
guessed? Uh, Very interestingly, though, he was apparently sending sensitive pictures to Roger Stone, which I find just incredibly delightful
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
to
whoa, whoa,
know
whoa.
that. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
no, no, you do not mean what I think you mean. Did you?
Jones was basically like it's like he's basically being like kind of a cuck.
No.
It's like there's no specific information about this, of course, because we don't have access to all the messages. But that seems to be the implication that he was sending pictures of his wife, or more aptly, of his ex-wives, to uh, people who he did not have permission to send those pictures to. That is the allegation.
Oh, honey, no. Alex.
Yeah, yeah.
Alex. I know you're listening, Alex.
Regular viewer.
He is. I know this for a fact. Alex. Alex.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Alex, bud. You need to come sit here with your Uncle Orion here. Um, don't do that shit.
Yep.
And I look forward to the following sexual harassment suit coming.
Second piece of this is that it is the entirety of his text messages over the last 3 years, which notably includes the period during the January 6th riots and before them. And would you know, the January 6th committee was very interested to get a copy of those text messages, and they since have. So, very interesting.
So I have to ask, because I don't know if I believe that this was an accident. Do you believe this was an accident? The leak of his whole phone?
I don't know. I initially, yes. It seems too dumb for it to have been on purpose, especially with how quickly they called for a mistrial about this afterwards, because like it's really dumb,
Yeah.
It's like first year law kind of stuff. Don't give the opponent everything. It's too dumb to seem like it was accidental. Um, but I think it's also important to keep in mind that this is the same thing with Trump. They've gone through so many lawyers that this was Jones's 12th defense lawyer.
Mm.
They are literally running out of people to represent them. So it very well could be. And given some of the wider implications that have been made afterwards, it definitely seems that, you know, if this was intentional, you would have combed through some of it and removed some of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
If you're just trying to get a mistrial, don't give them the insurrection stuff. Don't give them the stuff that makes you look like a pervert. And they did. It was everything. So I do think it was probably just stupidity that they tried to capitalize on.
Okay. I'm of the opinion that I truly don't know what happened here, and I don't think I have
Yeah.
the best opinion on it. But if this was sabotage from the inside,
Mm-hmm.
I could see it.
It's a remarkable amount of self sabotage.
Yeah. I'm just saying, an assistant did this. Someone who doesn't
Yep.
exactly have to worry about all the consequences of that.
Yep.
I'm just saying, it's a little on the nose.
Yeah. It definitely seems to be like, to a degree at least, not intended, or it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um, I lost my train of thought there. There was one more thing I thought. But I. Oh yes. So this last thing is what makes me think it's probably not intended,
Okay.
because the lawyer themselves is now coming under scrutiny for their part in it, because part of what was released through these messages was absolutely privileged information as it related to medical records that were of like the people suing Alex Jones.
Okay.
Because a part of this is that they're claiming, like, mental stress, right, mental anguish,
Hmm.
and they had doctors who helped them out with coming to that conclusion. They didn't just come out of nowhere. And apparently, not only did Alex Jones have copies of these documents, he was texting them back and forth with people who should not have them. So it's like that alone is where this becomes a matter of far greater misconduct, because he is the lawyer specifically, not Jones, is now being implicated for the release of these records and has been threatened with, like, basically being disbarred for mishandling them.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So yeah, that is particularly egregious, and probably rules out the any intentional side of it, just due to the consequences that the lawyer himself would be receiving from it.
Okay. I will take that as a reason.
It's just good old fashioned stupidity. Occam's razor.
Good old American homegrown stupidity.
When it comes to Alex and Trump's lawyers, they're not sending their best.
I mean, why would you? Those cases are pretty much just there to make a name for yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and not even that. No one wants to touch these. Business Insider had a report from Alan Dershowitz, who is claiming, this is their little line here: every reputable attorney he's spoken with has told their firms, quote, won't let them go anywhere near Trump. Which is not surprising. These are guaranteed to lose stuff, and they don't want to be on the hook for this. Especially with as many times Trump has just blatantly ignored the advice of his lawyers.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Great part is that Dershowitz himself actually represented Trump for a bit, um, following the Senate impeachment trial, and he has said that he himself lost basically business and speaking engagements because of that. So it's like, yeah, I did this, it didn't work, don't do it. And that's very nice.
I want to know, like, how long does it take you to get your reputation back after you do one of these cases? Is there like just a period where people will not forget? Well,
So I feel like if you're a big enough name to start, like if you're an Alan Dershowitz, for example,
yeah.
he's been around for decades before this, and he's probably not going anywhere, right? He's just a big enough name with a good enough record otherwise, that if you have the money or the influence, he'll probably take your case on this. But if you're these smaller lawyers, and you don't have like something else going on, as soon as anybody Googles their name, they're gonna find this kind of crap. And they're gonna have to make that decision, you know? If you're pro Alex Jones or pro Trump, you're probably gonna go with them. But if you're not gonna risk it with a 10-foot pole because it's just not worth the time or the possible loss of expenses for having this kind of amateur-ish level of support.
Yeah.
Like one of Trump's current attorneys is like a Florida real estate person or something like that. Like they're way out of their league with this kind of shit. But they're the only people left.
Nice. Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Another quick little bit on this. One of the other claims that good old Rudy was making, because he's still involved with this for some reason. I don't know. He should probably just like,
He's in too deep,
for
man.
the sake of his health, he should probably stop because he is looking worse by the day.
He's in too deep.
But in an interview with Newsmax, he has claimed that Trump was trying to preserve the documents by keeping them safe at Mar-a-Lago. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
As a helpful Redditor pointed out, if only there was an agency dedicated to the protection and preservation of records.
yeah, it's Mar-a-Lago, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They could even call it like the Federal Archive. That's got a good ring to it. Archive.
Archive. I like it. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Federal, because the federal documents. It's almost like they belong to the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I like that. We should get started on something like that. I'm, you know, I'm sure if we had something like that, no sane person would take it upon themselves to, fuck with the government that hard.
Excuse me. I have to make a slight correction.
Oh,
Trump didn't hire a housing lawyer. It's a Florida insurance lawyer.
that's almost
Huge
worse.
difference. Huge difference.
Rip.
Let's get into some of this other spicy stuff that happened.
There's more spice? How nice.
Yes. Yeah, this one's actually pretty. So, Justice Department under William Barr has been determined to have improperly withheld portions of an internal memo that Barr cited in announcing that Donald Trump had not obstructed justice in the Russia investigation. The department had argued in 2019 that the memo represented private deliberations of its lawyers before any addition was formalized and was thus exempt from disclosure. A federal judge previously disagreed, ordering the Justice Department to provide it to a government transparency group that had sued for it. So the current piece at issue here is a March 2019 memorandum from the head of the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel and another senior department official that prepared for Barr to evaluate whether evidence in the Mueller report could support prosecution of the president for obstruction of justice. Barr claimed he had looked to that opinion and concluding that Trump did not illegally obstruct the Russia probe, which was an investigation of whether his campaign had colluded with Russia to tip the 2016 election. Remember, this was the piece where not Mueller, the former head of the FBI,
Yeah.
who did the Hillary emails thing like a week before the election, was found to have basically illegally colluded with foreign agents, and that was that whole thing.
I remember.
So this was an appeals court decision that was released the day before yesterday, Friday, that said the Internal Justice Department memo noted Mueller had declined to accuse President Trump of obstructing justice, but had also declined to exonerate him. The internal memo said the report's failure to take a definitive position could be read to imply an accusation against Trump if released to the public. Justice Department turned over other documents to Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington as part of the group's lawsuits, but declined to give them the memo. Government lawyers said they were entitled to public records to withhold the memo because it reflected internal deliberations before any formal decision had been reached on what Mueller's evidence showed. Gist of this works out to that Barr had this memo. It did not say that Trump was exonerated, and he said it was. He also lied about the contents of it to try to prevent it from being released. Now that we have it, we know that Barr lied about the Russia, Russia, Russia scam.
Are we just going to keep calling it that?
I feel like it's apt.
I mean, he literally referred to it himself as the
He
Russia,
did.
Russia, Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's like he gets like a certain amount of money from Putin every time he endorses Russia?
I don't know. Maybe it's like a royalties thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I could
thinking.
see that.
Yeah. So where's this heading next, Mr. Chiral?
Right now, we're kind of in a holding position. So there's been a lot of those little breadcrumbs this week that have all tied into just how stupid that initial statement was. Um, right now, we're waiting for the release of the search warrant itself, the affidavit that resulted in it. We will be. It'll be interesting to see what happens afterwards. It's got some pretty key information in it that should uh, paint a better picture of what was being looked at. I wouldn't be surprised if it confirms the nature of the documents that were being found, if even if it doesn't go so far as to specifically name anything, because it is classified stuff that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to Alex Jones, currently waiting for more information from the Connecticut suit, which is expected to proceed here pretty soon. Um, But yeah, that one is also kind of like it's the Texas one is kind of done at this point. They're talking about like further penalties for the violation of ethics that resulted from it. But the case itself is kind of done now.
Have you seen that one clip where Alex Jones is being like nagged at by the judge, where they're
Hmm.
like, "Mr. Jones, do you have something in your mouth? I told you you're not allowed to eat in the courtroom."
Yeah.
And he's
I feel for that judge. She looks just so done.
that judge deserves like her own little piece of American history at this point.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I've seen such a kangaroo court as some of the clips from the Alex Jones case.
Hmm. Yeah.
Having to keep that all together, I would not do that.
Yeah. The last piece of it that's going to be interesting to see is that it relates to the punitive damages. So in Texas right now, they have a law that states that punitive damages cannot exceed $750,000 or twice the compensatory damages. So in this case, compensatory damages were like 4.5 million. So punitive damages by their law can't exceed like nine. The judge in this case ordered $49 million in punitive damages. Alex Jones, his lawyers are, of course, suing against that or like, appealing that because it goes directly against the Texas state law.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, the lawyers for the parents related to it have pretty much said that they're of the opinion that those sorts of laws are pretty blatantly unconstitutional and that they will be challenging it because of that as long as they can in order to get the full amount that they believe that these parents are deserved.
Fair enough.
So that element of it isn't completely done yet, but it is relatively minor in the broader scheme of things, and we'll have to wait and see which way that goes. That's going to be a longer fight to something else. Connecticut is definitely where the rest of the attention is going to be pointed for now.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of attention, where should we turn our attention next in this long series of just straight
Mhm.
up wins?
I think it'd be good to look to Alan Weisselberg,
Ooh, who's Alan Weissenberg?
CFO of one of Trump's charitable organizations, who has taken a plea deal about misuse of the charity's funds.
Oh no.
The gist of it that we have right now is that Weisselberg has accepted, I believe, a 5-month jail term as well as fines, uh, in exchange, although in not so many words, for testifying in turn against Trump in the same case or related cases.
I just feel this is like comedically over the top how many cases are going against this guy at this point.
Yeah. It's like a, red string spider web kind of bullshit.
Yeah, like how do you
It's
keep
a
track of
lot.
this? And like eventually these cases are going to start merging into each other at a point because like one
Hmm.
case's evidence will help another case.
Oh
One
yeah.
one judge is going to look at the precedent from another case.
Yep. We already have the Alex Jones thing feeding into the January 6th investigation.
Exactly. And you
Yeah,
know
there's gonna
who
be more of that.
yeah. It's like dominoes and I just want them kind of be done at this point, but
Hmm.
oh
Yep.
boy, is it going to be fun. Should we start a betting pool of like when the actual charges are going to come out?
Do it taunting for whichever one takes the longest to resolve.
Oh, there we go. I've got 5-1 odds. January 6th is the first one to get full charges.
Hmm. Let me skim through these, see if there's anything else. That was the big one, was that Weiselberg had taken a plea deal to plead guilty in exchange for testimony in a related case. Um, I can get rid of that one. So we're waiting to see when that happens. Yeah, here we go. Trump's CFO, sorry, Alan Weisselberg pleads guilty in tax scheme. Um, the gist of it right now is that, from what I understand, the judge in that case has basically put that on as a stay and not accepted anything as final yet, on the chance that Weisselberg balks at the last minute. So if
Mm.
Weisselberg doesn't testify, or he just goes up there and says, "I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth," um, the idea is that he'll be looking at 15 years instead of 5 months,
Ooh, that's a big difference.
which is a pretty big stick to go against it with. So the other case was from former Attorney General under Obama, uh, Eric Holder, has suggested that Trump is likely to be indicted on criminal charges relating to the January 6th events, as well as the events leading up to it, specifically related to the investigation ongoing in Georgia. There's been quite a few updates in that one that I do not know the details of well enough to really talk about. The gist is that the investigation is proceeding, that Lindsey Graham has been implicated in it pretty dramatically,
No.
unsurprisingly, because he made a call as well.
Yeah.
Um, that has been put on somewhat of a hold for now because of the question remaining as to what um, Graham is. He is claiming that he was, it was his Senate duties, basically that his speech was protected and that he can't be tried for it. And it's shaky. There's been two judges that have said no, that's not the case. It's currently at an appeal level where they have delayed his having to testify while they hear argument. It shouldn't pass. It should be bullshit. If it is allowed to go through, it basically means that a congressman can't be sued for any of their speech at that point,
Yeah.
because then all of their speech would be part of their congressional duties. That's clearly bullshit, but we'll see how it goes. Um, Assuming this continues to go forward, though, uh, there is pretty clear interference in that. We all have at this point, I think, heard the very damning phone call that was released by, I believe, it was the Georgia governor.
Yeah. The bullying
The
phone call.
Yeah, the I only need 10,000 more or whatever it was.
Yeah. God.
Okay, let me skim once more here, but we're definitely going to be coming back to that one because it is very spicy. Yes. So let me move all of the US news, like court stuff, up here. Uh, Sudden, yeah, but we can wait for that one. That's a good one. We'll move that one up. We're going to move that one up. We'll do that one next, actually. So, Trump legal advisor Jenna Ellis has been ordered to testify in the Georgia election probe. That's the story, but it's a pretty huge update in regard to just them continuing to move forward with this.
Yeah.
We had a similar case going on in New York regarding a number of things. It kind of stalled for a bit, and it is very welcoming to see that this one is continuing to move forward. Good on the Georgia prosecutors for just continuing to move it along. Yeah, that is pretty much it for that one, and then we'll move that one up. Okay, next one, relating back to Trump's statement. The next bit of it that is kind of bullshit. Today, hours ago, Trump launched an attack on no one other than Mitch McConnell and his crazy wife.
What the fuck did I just hear?
Yes.
No, there's no
Trump
way.
lashed out at McConnell after McConnell, I believe. Or no, sorry. Trump lashed out at McConnell after Trump said the GOP might struggle to flip the Senate. Trump said that McConnell was a broken down hack politician, not wrong, who should support GOP Senate hopefuls, even though McConnell is, like a lot of people are against some of Trump's bullshit
Yeah.
and the candidates that he's putting forward, like the actual child molester from Alabama, who thankfully got turned down in the election. Former president said McConnell should spend less time helping his crazy wife and family get rich on China, which is one of those cases where it's just like Trump's not wrong, but it's also Trump, so he's not doing it for the right reason.
He is such a weird figure, and it's so weird to have him back on politics that he's no longer president on, because I forgot how fucking entertaining he is when he's not president.
When there's very little consequences at this point, it is very amusing.
I almost wish we could keep him around, but we all know that's not the case. He should have, this is like the $1 million idea right here. And Trump, I know you're listening. Donnie, buddy, what you need to do is you need to get off Truth Social and just make your own news network where you do commentary, like live commentary. I will watch that shit for fun. That would be so hilarious, man. You are.
I don't know if I'd watch it for fun, but it would make me feel less bad about my own circumstances. Just seeing, just having somebody who seems genuinely deranged and doesn't realize it and proves it daily is kind of a sobering reality check that my life's not that bad. I'm not that guy.
Cairo. I'm going to break character very briefly here.
Okay.
I'm talking about my personal life.
Yeah.
The fucking nut jobs I talk to every day on the phones. And if you fucking know me from Farmers, you don't know me from Farmers because I work at State Farm. Maybe I'm lying. Maybe I work for, what's their name? Progressive.
Yeah.
Besides the fact, I've talked to some real nut jobs out there in this world. Yeah. And you don't understand how sanity is such a commodity nowadays until you've spoken to people who tell us that our insurance company is not a business and that we have no right to increasing our prices because we offer nothing to supply. Yep. So, my dude, you're perfect the way you are.
Well, that's reassuring.
Yes.
Okay. That all aside, spicy news out of North Carolina.
Go on.
So one of the major pushes that has been going through right now with just Republican legal theory in general is the idea of these Republican majority controlled state legislatures using their power to basically brute force their way past the justice system.
Okay.
We have seen time and again, over particularly the last 2 years, a huge number of Republican laws get passed. Laws get passed by these Republican legislatures that have shortly after been shut down by judges. The abortion stuff until it got up to the Supreme Court. But even then, there have been some that go beyond what the Supreme Court has ruled that were pretty swiftly shut down by other judges or were stayed. And we're actually going to have two of them that we're going to be talking about later today. One out of Michigan here and another one in Florida. But the idea is that, if you get a large enough group of people on your side in the Senate or their Congress, however they describe it, you can kind of get around that process entirely.
Yeah.
What we're seeing now is that is not proving to be the case yet, where in North Carolina, the Supreme Court of North Carolina ruled that because North Carolina's uh, electoral map basically is unconstitutional, that by definition, the people elected from that map are an unconstitutional delegate.
What?
And in this case, meaning that they can't pass laws that are overturning or amending the North Carolina Constitution. So
Interesting.
they describe them as an unconstitutionally constituted legislature, and as a result, do not have the power to propose amendments to the North Carolina Constitution. This is, of course, being contested or disagreed with, but notably in this case, because it is a state legislature, a state constitution, and a state Supreme Court, this is the end of the line for it. And it comes after a long history of this particular legislative body and these especially gerrymandered maps having been contested for a long time. I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe this was one of the gerrymandered states where they put forward like 3 maps, and all of them were turned down for being racially biased, basically. Until eventually it got up to a certain point, either in the appeals process or all the way to Supreme Court, can't remember which, where they basically said you need a map in order to conduct elections. So you're going to have to stick with the unconstitutional one for now. But that ruling only applies to federal levels. And in this case, the state Supreme Court of North Carolina has said that for state matters, we don't care. It's not a good map. You can't use it. And until a constitutional non-gerrymandered map can be presented and used to elect a body of officials, that body of officials cannot hold the legislative powers that they want to. We'll see how this goes from here. There's a lot of other states that are in similar situations. If this proves to be applicable in other states, it's going to be up to their Supreme Courts, of course, and the Supreme Courts are, in a lot of cases, an elected position. This, even in North Carolina, could get overturned eventually if a different Supreme Court comes along. But we'll have to wait and see. This is like the answer to a major problem that this conservative legal theory has been presenting for a while.
Interesting.
Yep. And it's basically just the court coming back and saying, no, you're not allowed.
Now, what was the next one? I believe I know what this next one is. I'm excited to talk about our kick-ass DA.
Yeah, so we'll go through those real quick. This one in Michigan is that our Attorney General, not DA, Attorney General,
yep.
Michigan State Attorney General has, since Roe was overturned, holding that prosecutors in Michigan cannot enforce Michigan's abortion ban. That at a statewide level, they're, even though the law is on the books, they're not going to enforce it. This was challenged, of course, by people who want to enforce it, and it made its way up to, let me double check, Court of Appeals ruling earlier this month that this is overturning, saying that they can continue to not enforce the 1931 abortion ban. So, go Dana Nessel, kick their ass.
I'm all for it.
I really hope that we have a good voter turnout this midterms. This is if there's ever gonna be a chance, right? This has to be it.
Yeah.
Governor is up for election, Attorney General is up for election, and there is a number of ballot proposals that should be on the ballot come November. If a strong turnout happens, this could be a landmark year for Michigan law and human rights in the state. So, very exciting times.
That reminds me, I lost my voter ID card in my house somewhere.
Oof. Hopping over to Florida, though, unsurprisingly, a Florida judge has blocked DeSantis's Stop Woke Act because it was pretty blatantly unconstitutional, and they knew it. But it makes good press for the Florida governor.
But they need to stop the woke people.
Yeah.
Cairo, the woke people are coming to take away our culture. This is about preserving Americans, eh? Seriously, what was the Stop Woke Act all about?
So that was the idea that it was restricting what teachers in Florida schools could and couldn't teach in their schools,
Oh yeah, that's fucked up.
which was pretty bad. Like on the merits, it doesn't make sense. Um, they're probably going to appeal it at this point,
Yeah,
and they'll probably try to appeal it up to the Supreme Court. Uh, we'll see what happens then. Um, this should be a clear cut First Amendment thing, right? Teachers aren't directly government employees, There's a level of division there similar to how it works in pretty much all branches of government. Even if your paycheck comes from there, there are stays in place that it's not the same if you're like an employee of the IRS. So this should be clear cut. You can't do it because it restricts free speech, but we'll see.
fair enough.
In some good news,
Yo,
the Fourth Circuit, which is a federal court, has held that gender dysphoria is covered by the ADA.
hey,
That's the story. It's a nice little bit, though. Yeah, this is a good comment here. Um, it is, as they put it, dispiriting that the headline Federal Appeals Court holds that medical specialists focused on patient care are correct is news, but I'll take it. Yeah. What do you know? Doctors generally know what they're talking about when they have a consensus. Can't imagine that being in contention, but here we are.
but how many Facebook articles have they read? That's all I need to
Yeah,
know to judge these
exactly.
doctors.
Okay. Wanted to do two quick ones here. Liz Cheney, who's a current Republican senator who has kind of flipped a bit to going against the GOP in a lot of their elections, has pretty unsurprisingly lost her bid as a primary candidate in her state of Wyoming,
Makes sense.
which is it's kind of remarkable how monolithic they're trying to make the GOP. Uh, for an idea of how far this has shifted, 2 years ago in her last primary, she won with 73% of the Republican vote. In her time since Trump has been president and her tenure in the Senate, she has voted with Trump 93% of the time. And that is not enough.
Well, yeah, you can't go against the leader, bro. It's a cult.
Yeah. So if we can get to this, like, it's like what we're talking about with this McConnell story. If it really has gotten to the point here where the line is that thin, this could be the beginning of the GOP kind of cannibalizing itself at this point,
Are you implying
which
it hasn't been?
it hasn't been to a point that it has been detrimental to them yet.
Okay, there's a good way of
This
putting
would
it.
be the point where if you have uh, traditional conservatives on one side and Trump conservatives on the other, and they're actively fighting against each other, um, think about like the libertarians and how they kind of suck some of the votes away from Trump in the last election, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't take a huge contingent to have a massive impact in our current political climate when there is that like severe disdain that we're seeing right now.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of the nature of where the US is politically that uh, these disagreements could start to have cascading effects. And we'll have to wait and see. Looking at like this Wyoming election, it's almost a guarantee that whoever it was that primaried Liz Cheney is probably going to win the election proper in November. But when you take a candidate more, who's less divisive, it becomes it becomes more of a guarantee, right?
Yeah.
You put these divisive figures in there as the election comes up, and less people are gonna switch sides, right? There's that middle ground of people that catering to moderates shouldn't be the thing, but a lot of people are moderates where they just don't really give a shit unless they have to, and these are the kinds of things that could make them care.
Yeah. Exactly.
Another little fun one here, specifically related to just the Liz Cheney thing. The person who she was primarying against, who won, pretty much immediately after the election, went on to one of the news sources and said that Cheney had refused to concede the primary. To which Cheney responded by swiftly releasing a copy of the phone call from her to that primary opponent, congratulating her on the victory and conceding it. So it just shows you the caliber of people we're talking about here, where not only are they trying to claim this bullshit out of nowhere for no reason, they already won, but then the people they're basically working with are aware of how shitty they are to the point where they're recording calls congratulating them on their victory.
I really do think that
Just in
says quite a
case.
lot. Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Is Wyoming a one party state where you only have to have like one person's permission to record a call?
Probably.
Yeah.
Most states are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And in this case, I believe um when it comes to like a two-party consent kind of thing, that tends to be related to action that is not private. In this case, if this is a primary thing, this isn't a government of, she doesn't have to call this person to concede. Um, I don't think, not sure how much that would apply, anyways.
Yeah.
And in other Republican nut news, Laura Boebert apparently listed her husband's consulting income as not applicable on a financial disclosure following multiple prior controversies regarding her and her husband's financials.
Ooh.
Uh, if you ever want to see some real interesting, I don't know what to call it. It's Laura Boebert and her husband are way up the tier of craziness to an alarming degree where it's just like paper thin transparency with how poorly they're trying to hide this stuff. Where she gets elected, she gets some financial kickback to her campaigns for some oil places, and miraculously, her husband's now got a $500,000 a year job working for one of these oil companies
Nice.
as a consultant. He's a contractor, not an employee. It's it's remarkably paper thin.
No, dude, he just won that over for being a good, hardworking American.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And her husband is, I don't know if it's allegedly or confirmed yet, but I know there is at least allegations that he's a pedophile.
Well, now that's where I draw the line.
Mm-hmm. It's very amusing.
Mr. Chiral, I'm going to say this and I don't mean to offend anybody in the audience when I say this. This is just my political opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm against the concept of pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people should really take some notice into what these sickos do and where they come
Yes.
from. I hope I didn't offend anybody with my political take there.
Positive news now?
Holy shit, there's positive news?
There is.
Fuck
Two of
off.
them even.
Fuck off.
Pair. Congress did something.
Congress doesn't do shit, dude. You're even an American for what, 25 years now? 26? 25?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, 25. Yeah,
Motherfucker, you know as much as I do that Congress doesn't do shit.
I know. That's why it's so surprising because they did.
They go on a recess?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Um, no, but notably here, there's two pieces of legislation that got passed: the Inflation Reduction Act and the PACT Act. So, um, these are huge amounts of money that are going to this now. But the PACT Act specifically is related to how the VA treats veterans that come to them with basically any cancers or tumors. The gist of it being that now, if a veteran who has any chance of having been exposed while an active duty member has one of these conditions, the assumption will be that the cause of it was due to exposure that they might have had while working rather than it being through some sort of other thing. And that was the big hang up here, is that these veterans have cancers, tumors, you name it, that are almost certainly caused by exposure to toxic burn pits, the same shit that we saw from the 9/11 first responders,
Yeah.
where you have all this toxic shit being burned and wasted. Um, that in this case was being assumed to have been from other sources until it could be proven otherwise. Which, given that some of this stuff happened in the 80s, there's not really a good way to do it, and it's clear bullshit because these people are dying.
Yeah.
Um, the PACT Act changes the direction of that so that if these veterans have cancers, it is assumed that it was done on the job. It was from exposure while on the job, and that they will receive treatment. Uh, John Stewart worked with a number of these veteran groups to, be kind of like a spokesperson for them, right? To be a face that people know. He's done great work working with these people. There's a brief podcast that he did with a pair of the writers from one of his shows who were there on the day that the PACT Act was passed, talking about some of the hardships leading up to it, and just the great joy that it was when they kind of realized that it was actually going to pass this time after Senator Toomey, I think it was, the big piece of shit that he is, uh, after, because the way that the timeline worked was that the PACT Act was started in the Senate and it passed like 84 to something,
Okay.
overwhelming support.
Yeah.
It went to the House. The House had a slight, like, grammatical error level of correction to it. Didn't change the content of the bill at all. Didn't even add anything. It literally removed a sentence. So they fixed it. They passed it overwhelmingly and sent it back to the Senate. When it went back to the Senate, Toomey got enough Republicans to drink his Kool-Aid that they didn't pass it the second time, where they basically, excuse me, they basically filibustered it to being stalled, um, and they wouldn't bring it up for a vote. About a week of media coverage bashing them for that shitty decision later, and it had another overwhelming vote. It was like 86 to something this time, even more so. And there's a really great piece that John talks about in the podcast afterwards, where they're in the Senate chambers watching this all happen and seeing all of the senators come into the chambers. They're now being announced as they come in, taking their seats, mingling a bit with each other. And he talks about a great piece where Toomey is kind of off on his own, very clearly being like school lunch table levels of excluded from the rest of the Republicans because of all the shit that he caused them to go through in terms of optics over not passing it when it came back to them. And it's very delightful. Highly recommend that interview piece. It's on it's his show's YouTube channel, The Problem with Jon Stewart. 40-minute bit. It's a great interview talking about some of the emotional ups and downs that were going on through that week as he was working with these burn pit survivors and some of the organizers. So it's very good, and it is passed. Biden signed it. It is put into law, and it's about damn time.
I mean,
It's one of those things that, we all know that the VA exists, and we all have a pretty good idea of the function it serves. But we get stuff like this that comes up not uncommonly, and we all just kind of have to stop and go, wait, it doesn't do that already? Why not?
I think it says a lot about Congress and the Senate right there with the story of this PACT Act.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just makes me wonder how many votes on the Congress floor actually have like the bills get read properly, or how many of them are just
Yeah. Oh, almost none of them.
yeah.
That was one of the things with the Bill Barr thing that we talked about earlier. That the court cited as how they knew he didn't do his due diligence with the memo because he got the Mueller report and then like the same day practically released a statement given
Nice.
even though the report was like some 300 pages long and
Weren't
he
they?
would have had the full yeah, it's long, it's in depth. I have a book that is the report
I was about to
because it was
say.
long enough that they could print it as a bound piece of media.
I remember them selling the Mueller report in Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
picked it up at some like discount bulk outlet where they had them for like $5. And I was like, yeah, $5? Why not?
that's a piece of American history you got there.
It is. Yep.
Yeah.
I keep it right next to my pocket constitution.
You have a pocket constitution?
Of course I fucking don't. What am I look like? A libertarian?
Oh,
I have Google for that.
that's true.
But it's the kind of thing that it is so long, reading it in a digital form is kind of ineffective because it's just so easy to just kind of glaze over.
Okay, real talk right here, right?
Yeah.
Do you prefer physical books or digital books?
It depends on the kind of books
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
If it's something dry, like nonfiction, physical all the time because it is far easier for me to focus on the book that has no other way for me to get distracted than like something on my phone.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. But for particularly for stuff like comics, I've definitely started to do that on my phone far more.
Okay.
Just because it's it's like the short little bursts of stuff. It's very visually engaging, and it's a lot harder for me to get distracted from reading something. And if I am getting distracted when I'm reading something, a piece of fiction, I probably shouldn't be reading it because it's probably not that good.
You're right.
That's kind of my way of thinking about it.
I like books because they help establish this wall between you
Mm-hmm.
and the outside world.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into the next one here. Biden has signed the Inflation Reduction Act, which does a bunch of stuff. Has major investments in clean energy and climate mitigation, a 1% tax on stock buybacks that should restore some of erosions that were lost. It gives Medicare historic power to negotiate drug prices. It unfortunately doesn't do it for all things. It's just Medicare, so it's like not quite all the way there, but it's better than nothing. And it'll help work against big pharma. It provides money to the IRS for going after very wealthy tax evaders, which is going to be huge for our budgets in the US coming up here. The IRS, it's something like for every dollar that you invest in the IRS, they make $3 back. It's an
No.
insane level of returns for the US government. And they do that nickel and diming people like you and me who like misfile incorrectly type things. In
Yeah.
this case, this is like actively going against wealthy tax evaders, and it should be very huge.
Look forward to that. I really
And
do.
probably most importantly, a 15% minimum corporate tax rate.
15?
15.
15. 1 5.
15. It is very good. Person over on Reddit put a good summary together showing the scale of some of the measures that have been passed in the Biden administration right now. And I feel like Biden's probably going to be kind of a forgotten president, particularly if he's only got like a one term for one.
Yeah.
But seeing it listed out, it is remarkable what he's been able to get done kind of quietly here. And that's probably the best way for him to get this stuff passed because then, the right wing media doesn't have time to spin it if it's not a story, you know?
I do feel like that's been a very big advantage he's had as
Yeah,
president.
he's
Because, like,
kind of boring
he's a
and
very
it's not fun to
boring.
talk about him.
We
and
have
it
to make our
works.
own jokes for him, like Dark
Yeah,
Brandon.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think it says a lot. Really, it really does. And I think it helps that he came after Trump, who Trump very
Mm-hmm.
much loves being in the spotlight.
Yep, yep.
So he doesn't really need to get attention because all the attention's already on the other guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is a piece, an excerpt from Politico of this is some of the stuff that because keep in mind, he's not even been president for 2 years yet.
Yeah.
And this is what's happened. I'm going to do this in order of amount of money delegated for it. The Chips and Science Act, $280 billion. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, 550 million. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we just talked about, estimated to be about 700 billion. And most massively, the American Recovery Act, $1.9 trillion. $3.5 trillion agenda. Scope of the issues, including the pandemic and its economic fallout, highways, bridges, broadband, which is going to be huge for a lot of people, even if they don't even realize it yet, rail, manufacturing, science and technology, prescription drug prices, health insurance, climate change, deficit reduction and tax equity. He has expanded NATO, passed new gun safety laws, and passed a bill to address the effects of exposed toxic burn pits. 5 out of 7 of these laws, all but the ARP and the American Recovery Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, I believe, received significant Republican support in 2 years.
2 years.
It is a remarkable amount of work that has gotten done without almost anybody noticing if you're not paying attention.
I kind of want to do like a comparison to like the first 2 years of Trump's presidency.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see if I can pull that up.
And to top it off, we're starting to see some of the uh, economic side of all of the funding that the U.S. has been giving to Ukraine that isn't going to guns, because that seems to be like the common misunderstanding with it, is that, oh, it's all like weapons and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. This is a big story this week where this is from the UN. The US has just purchased a huge grain shipment that is not going to the US, it's going to other countries. Almost half of the US aid that's been allocated for Ukraine um, is going towards both supporting and rebuilding the Ukrainian economy, as well as facilitating purchases from the Ukrainian economy. Like grain is one of their biggest exports, so the U.S. sends money to guarantee that it gets it bought at like a fair market rate, and then basically gives it away to the people who would be probably buying it anyways. So in this case, this is let me see if I can get a number here. 150,000 metric tons of Ukraine over the next couple of weeks, purchased by the U.S. to be shipped to places that need it, per the World Food Organization chief. Um, yeah, like it's good. And this is the kind of soft power that the US has been facilitating, even if we haven't exactly been using it over the last couple of decades to the greatest extent that we can. But when you have people talking about, like, oh, we need a smaller government, this is the kinds of stuff that ends up getting hurt inadvertently because of that. If you have a small government, you can't purchase and redistribute grain from both a country that needs the economic health as one of your allies and the economic benefit of giving that grain to the people who genuinely need it. 10 out of 10. Very nice job.
So, okay, I think we're in a safe position to start speculating this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And it's been kind of already acknowledged by him that he's going to be a one-term president, right? Biden.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think he is just so old.
He's ancient.
He's
Like,
very old.
yeah. So, with that being said, who do you think is going to be the 2024 nom? And I'm
I
talking about
don't
for
know.
both sides.
So for the Republican side, it's going to be a toss up between Trump and DeSantis. Maybe even both of them. I would be it's going to depend how the Trump cases go.
Yeah.
If he's in jail or if he is otherwise prevented from running for election, that's going to put a damper on things for him. But there's still going to be, I would say, millions of people that are going to vote for him regardless because
Yeah.
they don't care. They don't care. They don't know these laws. They don't. They only care about what goes out in his blog posts to his email lists. Um, so given that, they've already gotten to the point where if Trump isn't the candidate, they will be cannibalizing themselves.
Hmm.
And his popularity has only continued to slip since he was president. On the Democrat side, it definitely becomes an issue. There's a lot of candidates that it could be. I will be very shocked if it is anybody that we have seen already. You know, Obama's out, right? He's made that clear. He can't be president again. He has no interest in really going back into politics in any form.
Michelle would kill him.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Clinton, I can't see going forward a second time or a third time, I guess it would be. She just seems kind of done at this point, especially given how much work she's had to do without being an elected official with all of these bullshit hearings that they've been trying to have, both with her emails and Benghazi and all kinds of bullshit.
Yeah.
The most likely one is going to be one of the, this is general, it's going to be a male Democratic senator between the ages of 40 and 60, because it
Ooh.
usually is. Um,
Bye, Bernie.
yep. Bernie would be excellent. He'd be popular, but again, he would have been great 10 years ago, but he's also very old.
Yeah.
And while I wholeheartedly agree with his policies, I also strongly believe that as a country, we need someone who doesn't look like they need to be in a fucking nursing home. Because that is a huge problem we have right now, and a huge problem that Biden is going to have if he does decide to go for a second term. Is there's a huge number of people that are like our age
Yeah.
that buy into the Republican bullshit of how, the Democratic Party's not sexy. They're old and they're geriatric and we're the young guys. We get you, even when they clearly don't. And they don't care about their interests. They only care about their votes and their money.
Yeah.
Having somebody probably not John Ossoff. I think he's too young still and too inexperienced, but somebody like him who is not 70 plus,
You know who would have been a
who
great
does
candidate
genuinely, yeah, who?
before he lost his goddamn mind? Andrew Yang.
Yeah, I think that would have been really interesting. Seeing how he turned out, I'm kind of glad we dodged that bullet, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, before he lost his goddamn mind. I mean, have you seen what the fucking forwardist movement he's been doing?
Yeah, yeah, it's been wild.
Yeah. I love you, Yang, but please calm down. Wonder what he's doing now. Anybody else you would like to speculate? Did I just lose you? Oh, he just has to run to the bathroom real quick, everybody. All of a sudden, his bowels are more important than our show. Let's talk about Andrew Yang. Because I don't know if any of you have been following him on Twitter, but ever since he started his forward third party, he's been very interesting. I was part of the Yang gang when he was running in 2020. Now that I look at him a little bit harder, I find it very hard to believe this was the same guy who had the same policies as before, but hey, he was fun at the time. I will say that. Uh, Goes to show that you can't really trust anybody's first political appearances until they had a second one after they lost, because then they're going to change rapidly. But let's see here. Absolutely nothing. Oh, you spilled your drink?
Yeah, one sec.
Yeah.
Got my paper towel.
We've just been talking about Andrew Yang.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, really unfortunate how that turned out.
Yeah. He used to be cool, and then he lost, and then he went crazy.
Kind of feels like a budget like Mark Zuckerberg at this point.
He really does. Yeah. On February 26, 2021, Yang stopped a physical attack on a journalist on the Staten Island ferry by placing himself between the attacker and the journalist. The attacker recognized Yang and stopped the assault. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where do we want to go from here? I have a couple of Ukraine pieces, actually, that are kind of interesting.
I would love to hear them.
Okay. Three big ones recently. The most notable one was that there was a number of explosions in Crimea at a Russian military base that specifically was home to a number of their planes that were destroyed as a result of it. Which, like, in terms of numbers, isn't a super impressive amount, but neither Ukraine has not claimed responsibility for it. Is the key piece. They've basically just kind of been like, not us. And it leaves the question as to what actually happened. It probably was Ukraine, but we don't know. They haven't claimed responsibility for it. Russia's not saying it is,
Yeah.
because that would be pretty embarrassing. But the result of it is that it's moved a large number of the Russian air back out of Crimea into Russia proper,
Hmm.
which is a pretty significant distance when
Yeah.
you're talking like logistics. And the other two are kind of smaller. One just today, uh, the daughter of, oh, what's his name? Alexander Dugin, Daria Dugina, died in basically a car bomb or a car side bomb today that is believed to have maybe been for her father, who is basically the founder of the current Russian international philosophy of politics. But she was driving his car. This bomb exploded, killed her. And to be clear, she's also like in the same ultra nationalist bullshit stuff too. So it very well could have been for her as well.
Yeah.
But this was a very overt thing in Russia itself. And while Ukraine itself has, Zelensky came out and was like, yeah, wasn't us. Russia has also kind of said, yeah, it wasn't Ukraine either. We're investigating it because it would look really bad if Ukraine was able to get in Russia and start planting bombs, right? So there's a question as to what actually happened here, and it's quite suspect.
You don't think there's something a little inward going on in Russia, do you?
It sure seems to be, but good luck getting anyone to admit to that?
I mean, with all the Putin cancer reports and
Yeah.
all the civil unrest in Russia, it's not that hard to imagine.
He's one of the oligarchs in Russia, and there's been seven of them that have died since the start of the Ukraine war. So
Mm, oh, no.
it wouldn't be the first.
I'm just saying, like, what was it? Wasn't Putin like under investigation for, poisoning a couple of his rivals?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Alexander Navalny is currently in Germany, I think. And he basically, as a result of this, was like, yeah, the oligarchs suck. Here's a list of 6,000 of them that we've identified that you should sanction.
Oh, what a beautiful
Just pretty
move.
good.
Yeah.
He's a real one.
So, when do you think the next Russian Revolution is? I can't believe we're going to have one in our lifetime, but it sounds like we might. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
It's hard to say. I don't think it is the least likely thing. Um, I'll be shocked if it's a revolution, though, as much as it's just kind of an inward collapse.
I
You
know.
know,
I'm just saying
like,
the joke with Russia is it's always a revolution.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see it play out, though. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
one of the other big pieces that came out here is that there's apparently been a string of poisonings amongst the Russian military in Ukraine, which has been kind of funny with the Ukrainian response being just kind of like, oh well,
Is this
maybe you shouldn't be in Russia or in Ukraine.
I mean, what is this? Like day 120 on the 3-day war?
Yeah, it's oh no, it's way past that.
Oh god.
We're close to 6 months now.
Yeah. Well, 6 months. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Can you believe this has been going on for the better part of the year?
Yeah.
This is fucked
It's
up.
it's it's been remarkable how effective Ukraine's been holding out, though. You know,
I mean,
they're doing well.
we should just let them into NATO already. I mean,
Yep.
I think they've more than proven themselves at this point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I want them to hang out at our table. I will gladly to have a beer with Zelensky. I don't even drink.
The major problem is that in order to join NATO, you can't currently be like in any major conflicts. Basically,
I,
that's the current problem they have.
well, at this point,
Um,
if it's was imagined to be a 3 day war, but we're on month 6, I don't think it's that
yeah.
major. Joking aside,
Last piece. Uh, Vladimir Putin has claimed that Russia's weapons are decades ahead of Western counterparts. I actually saw it's amusing on its face because it's obviously not accurate. Ukraine has been getting training on some of these stuff for literally weeks, and
yeah,
they're already using it to great effect against Russia. Um, but it brought up a very interesting piece of discussion about the differing philosophies between the U.S. space program and the Soviet space program in the 60s, with how the Russian space program was entirely dedicated to as many like milestones as they could. The first to everything, right?
yeah.
The first orbital thing, the first man in space, the first to have two people in space, the first to what was the other one? It was like having like two craft meet in orbit, basically. The first. But the way that they were doing it was by taking stuff that they already had built and just kind of strapping extra things onto it. They weren't actually developing anything. They were taking these kind of shortcut approaches. And when you compare it to the US systems that we're working with, there's very clear methodology that they had going from one step to the next step to the next as they iterated and improved on not just accomplishing the individual tasks that they had set up, but accomplishing it and having it be a stepping stone to the next task. So you don't just want to put a guy in space if your goal is to put a man on Mars. You need to do the research and build the logistics to facilitate not just the next step, but have that go into the step after that. And that's where the Russian programs fell apart, was that they only facilitated a single thing. They put a guy on into space. Cool. But when it came to actually doing a long-term mission, the rocketry that they had was already like 20 years old at that point, and they had to completely start over. They tried to make it work and they couldn't. They had like 5 failed launches before they actually got to a new rocket system that would support what they were doing. But because the US recognized that their current rockets weren't good enough and started to build these bigger rockets rather than just using what they already had, they ended up jumping ahead. And
Wow,
this is kind
can't
of the similar
believe it.
situation
Yeah.
where, Putin's weapons are decades ahead of Western counterparts. Look at all of these things we can do. And it comes to the question of how accurate is that? How much of their weapons are actually better versus what's just being done for uh, propaganda purposes. And if it's like what they've been doing for the last 60, 80 years, the actual advances are going to be quite minimal.
Mm.
Couple more pieces. I'm going
Okay.
to completely change topics here.
Oh boy.
Walgreens is paying signing bonuses of up to $75,000 for pharmacists.
Oh boy.
So, uh,
Yeah.
the response to this has been pretty great because there's been a lot of pharmacists that have talked who either know people who work for Walgreens or who work for Walgreens themselves and don't anymore. They're basically just like, yeah, I'm sure they are. No one's going to take it because here's some examples of the kind of stuff that Walgreens wants out of their pharmacists. 14-hour shifts, no bathroom breaks, a 30-minute break at 1:30 p.m., and patients will complain to corporate about it. No chairs, you have to stand the whole time. You're graded on metrics such as how quickly you can get off the phone with a physician.
What?
And if you get fired within the next 2 years, you owe Walgreens all of the bonus cash they gave you.
What?
Mm-hmm.
How's that legal?
Corporations are people.
No, they're not. Fuck off. Fuck off with that bullshit.
There's apparently a whole subreddit that is Tales from the Pharmacy that
Ooh.
talks about just the shit that these people have to deal with on a good day and compound that on top of having these awful bosses.
Interesting. So what you're saying is big pharma is the way to go for a career, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that,
Yo,
more crypto market drops. Just a fun thing to talk about. Always nice to see it continue to happen.
gotta love
Crypto,
it.
Bitcoin has fallen below 22,000, which it's like a third, less than a third of what it was not even a year ago. But yeah, crypto, it's the future.
Yeah, they just didn't say how long the future lasted.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give it to those guys who were having like the time of their life when it was actually not like bursting, when the bubble was still being blown. Like I remember working at the grocery store I was working at, and we would get a lot of people who were like Bitcoin bros like brag to us about how we were like wasting our time working for a paycheck instead of investing in Bitcoin. And I truly believe they were having the time of their lives. And when they started working at that same grocery store, I knew I won.
hmm Final piece I have.
Yo,
Do you know? I've seen this talked about a lot, so I figure we should probably mention it. The Andrew Tate stuff. Some influencer type person who is apparently fleecing people with scam bullshit. Uh,
so
Banned from Facebook and Instagram, apparently.
from what I understand, uh, I only found out about him like last month,
hmm
and I just thought he was just some bullshit scam artist and just not worth my time. Did not expect this big dramatic jump in like escalations of what actual damage he was doing this whole time to get banned
Yeah.
uh, all along.
From the sounds of it, he's one of the like main proponents of like the incel type crap.
Nice.
That's my like 5 word summary of it.
Yeah.
He has been heavily promoting it, that like it's to these particularly impressionable young men, um that it's not your fault, it's everyone else's. And here's my $5,000 a month Discord server that you can come hang out with other people like you and share tips.
You mean I can buy friends?
Yeah, apparently.
Wait, is he like one of those Sigma mindset people?
Yes, apparently.
Motherfucker. Fuck off with that shit.
So we'll see. Given that this is like Meta, Facebook, Instagram that is doing this, I would hope that other social medias are going to follow along soon. Like Discord seems to be a big one related to this. YouTube is apparently another platform he's prominent on.
That's
But Facebook and Instagram are, of course, where there is just a large number of people. So it's at least a first step.
I will say I'm pretty happy with my life that I had to be told about Andrew Tate instead of discovering him myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same. I've seen a lot of people who have kids, it's particularly targeted at at men, who have kids in like the age range of like 12 to 16 that he apparently targets.
Oh,
Yeah, right. And I've seen a lot of people like Linus from Nice Tech Tips has a kid that's about that age, and he was really relieved to be talk to his kids like, "Hey, have you heard about this guy?" and have them say no.
good.
It's like it's bad enough if you're the individual who has it, but man, you imagine if your kid was, that would be
That would
rough.
break my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like your teenage years, and I'm speaking to our wide variety of teenage audience because obviously our content is totally marketed towards them.
Of course.
Yeah, the teenage years, man, are such a strange time to be fucking alive. Like that is like some real psychological bullshit you're going through at that time. The last thing you need is fucking someone like Sigma mindset grind, trying to turn you from an impressionable youth to, their fucking resource that they can exploit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sad.
For one, like at least small glimmer of hope from this is that I've seen a lot of people who are like kind of just like the doomer types that are just like, good luck with that. His whole thing is that his people are supposed to repost his stuff. And like the obvious argument to it is that, well, if deplatforming didn't work, why would people complain about it so much? Right?
Yeah, dude.
It clearly does something.
Look at Jordan Peterson and how much that fucked
Yeah.
him up.
Alex Jones not being able to be on YouTube.
Yeah. It clearly does something, and the less no, that's a bad way of putting it. I'm going to retract my current earlier statement because I could have said something terrible there.
But yeah, Facebook did something.
I'm starting to think Facebook and Congress might be the same person.
It's all connected.
Isn't it?
That's about all I have. No movies that seemed particularly interesting to talk about, unfortunately. Even though it's been like 3 weeks.
Darn.
It's just all kind of just, we're in the summer, the blockbusters have come out. Once we hit October, we'll start to see some more stuff.
What's the next big movie for Marvel? Wakanda Forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bullet Train came out.
How was that?
It's got a 53. It looks kind of mid.
I kept seeing trailers for that every fucking movie I went to. I'm glad.
It's an interesting idea, It just doesn't seem like they pulled it off.
Well, yeah, they didn't have the Marvel money, unfortunately.
Oh, no, I'm sure they had plenty of money.
Oh, I know.
It's just like everything else went wrong.
Yeah, good point.
It feels to me like it's trying to do too many things, Like you can have your action movie spy thing, but it's all on the train movie. Or you can have the spy doesn't want to kill people anymore because he's tired of everything going wrong thing, and have like one of those. But trying to do them both at the same time just feels gimmicky.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Nah, I think that's it. I think we had a very productive episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to go through, but I think we got the big ones.
Yeah, we've successfully identified Alex Jones, Donald Trump, and teenagers in our audience, so...
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the infamous Orion, and I've been a schmo.
I'm Kyle, and leave a comment below saying how much you disagree with us. It's good for engagement.
Or, leave a comment below if you agree with us in general.
Yeah.
Or, here's one. I want to start some debates in the comments since we're such an intellectual podcast. Okay? You want to know what the first one is going to be, Cairo?
Sure.
Go ahead, everybody. Go down below to the comments to let us know you made it to the end of the episode and tell us why your religion is the best one.
I'm sure nothing can go wrong.
I'm giving us all the fucking engagement.